Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information. All right, Night Nation, this is Andrew Phegley, and this is episode number 21 of the UCF Knightline Podcast. And this week, we have a new member of the Knightline Podcast crew to announce and that has joined us here in the 1148 studios today. And his name is Trylko. Trace, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
All right, well... So, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Trace is here. We're going to talk about the NFL a little bit. We're obviously going to talk about the bowl game between UCF and NC State. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about a little bit of basketball. But first of all, Trace, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became part of the team at the Knightline Podcast and, all that stuff.
Proud UCF alum, class of 1994, so I'm old like you.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank God. Wow.
Season ticket holder, UCF football, basketball, baseball, Golden Nightclub member, long time booster.
That says a lot if you'll sit through all those baseball games.
I love baseball. Love UCF baseball. And perhaps most importantly, I've listened to all previous 20 episodes of the Knightline Podcast.
And now you're on the 21st. What
Yes.
a circle that is. That's awesome. Very cool. What else? What do you want to talk about? What you do in your real life besides this, or
I am an executive director for a nonprofit, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul for Orlando. We help folks in need. We have 3 thrift stores in Apopka, Claremont, and Longwood. Proceeds from our store sales go to help people in need. So that's what I do by day.
Awesome. Well, there's always a good thing to help people in need wherever that is at. So where do you want to start here? What do you think? You want to start? Let's talk a little bit, because we're watching a little bit of NFL here. We're watching Goal Line on the computer screen behind me. The Jacksonville Jaguars played earlier, and we tried to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars on here, but we talk more, about our UCF guys and their roles on the teams that they're on. It's getting harder and harder to watch a NFL game and not have somebody from the Knights in it or associated in some way, which is really, really cool.
And when you play fantasy football like I do, and we're in our playoffs, to see Kamar Aiken score, and I'm playing against the Ravens defense, he scoops up the ball after the punt block against the Jags and scores, and I'm like, good for him, and not so good for me today.
Right, yeah. I feel the same way when I see Latavius Murray, run against the Kansas City Chiefs. Not so much today. He had 12 carries for 59 yards. I'm not sure. I didn't get to see that game, but 12 for 59 is more than sitting on the bench and getting 0. So,
and I think the challenge for some of our guys is that they're on very bad teams. You see what's happening with Blake Bortles and the offensive line. How many sacks in that game? 7 or 8 today? Yeah,
I got a Sports Center alert here that says rookie quarterback Blake Bortles was sacked 8 times today and intercepted once in a 20-12 loss to the Ravens. So 8 times.
That's been that way all year for him. It's trial by fire for him up in Jacksonville.
He only threw 1 interception though, so that's good. I've kind of tried to, hey, it's even if you threw did he throw a touchdown today? Do you know?
They had 4 field goals.
Oh, okay.
Their drives kept stalling.
Okay.
Storm Johnson got into that game as well and saw some.
I'm bummed because if you've, most of the people that are listening right now have listened the entire time, and maybe you're new, but I am kind of a fan of Denard Robinson because he reminds me of Jamal Charles, and I'm a huge Jamal Charles fan, and I'm bummed that he's out for the season, but then again,
it's opportunity for Storm Johnson.
Yeah. Not a Gerhardt fan at all, period, never will be, but yeah.
I think he's a piece, but I don't think you can build your running game around Gerhardt.
No. Yeah. How many white? I'm going to go there. How many white running backs are there in the NFL?
Gerhardt.
and yeah,
I'm at a loss.
That's all I'm going to say. I normally try not to go to places like that, but it's true. It's nothing that isn't true. So whatever.
Matt Prater kicking today for the Lions. I'm also facing him in fantasy football, so it's another one of those go Matt.
And he's got a couple points, I think.
Yeah,
there.
Stop scoring against my fantasy team.
Last week, I didn't really get to talk about the NFL at all, but last week I know Bruce Miller scored a receiving touchdown, which was pretty cool because he doesn't get to do that very often. I think he scores one or two a year, to be honest with you, but he does such a important job there blocking for Frank Gore that, obviously he was paid this year with his, contract, his rookie contract, I think was done, and he got a different contract. And I think is the second highest paid fullback in the NFL. He may be the only, or the only. There may only be two of them. I don't know, but
he's proven to be a very critical part of the 49er offense.
That is true. That's awesome for him. I never thought watching him on Saturdays that he would be, a running back, but I think it's awesome. He being a defensive, lineman and all that stuff at UCF. So, and
you'll find no bigger cheerleader of the Knights on Twitter and social media than Bruce Miller. He's always cheering on UCF.
Absolutely, yeah. The other thing that I wanted to talk about real quick, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week or not, but Brandon Marshall's out for the rest of the season, and he had some broken ribs and an actual, punctured lung. So that's not good for him. That's kind of a bummer. I like him a lot. I know that some people don't so much because he runs his mouth quite a bit and all that, and he's kind of a troublemaker, but I like him. So
he walks the talk, though, on the field.
He does, yeah. I think if he didn't, that would be a completely different story. So any other NFL stuff that you can think of? Prater's doing good. We're watching a little. Bruce is popping on here every once in a while. We have probably one guy in this game as well, maybe two. The McRae's might be in that at some point.
I think the key thing, though, is that when you watch NFL football now, you hear UCF player names mentioned, and we get those props on Sunday and Monday nights.
Hashtag built by UCF.
There you go.
All right, so let's see. The next thing I think I'm gonna bring up here real quick is that we're going, obviously, December 26th, and we're going to play NC State in the Bitcoin Bowl in St. Petersburg. The ticket sales have been absolutely awesome for this. You, I think, have a little bit of the number stuff that I didn't have, but I know we sold 6,000 tickets, which was our original allotment in like 3 days.
Yeah, really quickly, and then they released another batch of tickets to us, about 1,500, and those sold out quickly. And what's interesting is that the bowl isn't releasing any more formal tickets to UCF. The stadium only holds 28 and change for football, and already we've gobbled up a quarter of the stadium. And so many other folks are going on StubHub, Ticketmaster, and the like. That is a virtual home game for us, and we should pack the place.
So we've sold like 7,500 tickets, I believe, in right about like literally 5 days or something like that for that. So,
and those bowl tickets are not cheap.
No,
they're
not.
Like $60, $65,
yep.
$80 to watch a football game in the Tropicana.
With parking and everything, I spent $95. So, my ticket was $65 for 70, and then 20 for parking, and then some taxes and stuff like that. $95.
Where are your seats?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I just took whatever I got. I haven't really I bet they're probably up in that upper end zone.
I remember when we played Rutgers in the St. Pete Bowl. My tickets were behind home plate, which is great.
Right,
for baseball.
Yeah.
Not so good
I've mentioned
for the bowl game.
Yeah, I've mentioned before that I cannot stand to watch baseball. I don't care if it's Yankee Stadium. Baseball doesn't belong in football does not belong in baseball stadiums, period.
And the same goes with soccer. The MLS team in New York will be playing in, I think it's Yankee Stadium for their first couple of seasons before they have a stadium built.
Oh, they're going to play in the baseball stadium?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
They don't have a
interesting.
soccer-specific field up in New York. So football and soccer being played in baseball arenas and stadiums just doesn't work.
Where does there's two New York teams now, though, MLS teams, right? Isn't there? There's the Red Bull.
They
Where do
play
they
in
play?
Harrison, New Jersey.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
not even in New
And
York.
they don't. Do they have a soccer?
They have a
stadium?
soccer-specific stadium.
Oh, okay. Well, there'll be one in New York, I'm sure. I think that's part of the getting the MLS thing anyway. You know what? Maybe we might talk a little bit about the MLS on this thing. It's not really night related. There are some night players though in the MLS, aren't there?
There are a couple.
So
yeah.
maybe I can do a little bit more research, or it sounds like you know a little bit more about that than I do. So we might have to talk about that a little bit once, especially the Orlando City thing gets going here. I'm excited about it, and actually you turned me on to the podcast that Orlando City has, and they do a really quality job there. So I've kind of been listening to that, and I was a American football guy growing up. As a kid, I played like maybe 2 days of soccer and didn't really like it because I couldn't like hit anybody and I couldn't use my hands. So I actually, as a kid, played a little bit of indoor soccer, which was kind of weird as well.
Was that a day or 3? How many days was that?
It was a couple. It was a couple days. Yeah. It wasn't. My mom signed me up, and in Kansas City where I grew up, we had the Kansas City Comets were the indoor team, and that was like big there, So, of course, Sporting KC, which I will always be a fan of. So I guess when they play Orlando City, that might be a little weird for me. But whatever.
So there are a couple of UCF guys in MLS, and that'll give us something to talk about when soccer season rolls.
Do we have anybody on the Orlando City team?
Not
No.
as of yet.
I think Kansas City has one, though, correct?
I don't know
Possibly.
if Kansas City does.
I thought we did. I thought we drafted one of the UCF guys. But anyway, and I'm sure there will be more and more because the UCF soccer teams in general are pretty good, especially the women's, I believe. So that's one game that I have not gotten to see out at UCF yet, though, but I will.
I think the women's team ended up ranked final rankings number 16 in the
right.
country. So they're pretty good. Men struggled this year, but it's good to see them producing MLS talent.
All right. So, yeah, back to that bowl game. We kind of got off. That's fine, though. It's all good. That's how we do it here. Yeah, so we're going to St. Petersburg. So that'll be exciting. Do you know anything about NC State?
I haven't dove deep into looking at NC State. I think a lot of college football fans will recognize their quarterback. Jacoby Brissett was at the University of Florida. Up and down year for them. We go in as the favorite. I certainly think that this is a winnable game for us. It's another one of those. You shut down their running game. You make them try and beat you with a pass. And, we're third or fourth ranked overall defense in college football this year. So it plays to our strengths. And again, what can we do on offense against their defense? But that's been what we've been talking about all season long with UCF. Will we find the consistency on offense to win a game like this against one of the Power 5 conference teams?
Right, and I think it's crucial that we do that when we show that we can beat those teams, because the Power 5 teams that we played this year we did not beat, and we got significantly, Penn State. The first game of the year, that I'm chalking that up as to like being a mistake, to be honest with you. The mistake of starting Pete DeNovo, number one. Maybe even the mistake of going to Ireland to play that game. It should have been a home game. It was supposed to be a home game.
Yeah, but
blah blah blah.
But if you from what you're reading here, Penn State was not going to come here for that game.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? If you look at that game, we lose that game. We take the lead in that Penn State game. Defense lets them go down the field. They get the game-winning field goal. But think about the other last-second games that we won.
Right.
Notably the game at the end of the year, East Carolina. So somewhere along the line, that kind of cancels out.
Speaking of, that's where we're going next. We're going to talk about ECU game, because with Night Fan on last week, we basically just, shot the breeze and didn't really talk, too much about stuff, but you were at that game.
I was.
So tell us a little bit about your experiences at that game. Maybe the emotional experiences.
When you're at a game, the emotions are different than when you're watching a sports bar or watching in your living room. That was a game where I think collectively UCF fans felt, boy, we should be ahead by more. Why are we stalling out on these drives? Why are we kicking field goals, missing a couple? But you just felt like we were in control of that game, but we were letting them hang around. And boy, did they rally. They rallied in that fourth quarter, and that's another thing that I think is a tradition for UCF fans, is you felt like, oh, my goodness, we're going to blow this somehow,
Like we have how many times there before,
For years, where it will come down. We're competitive in the game, and, we've gone way beyond moral victories in any type of venue, in any type of matchup. And that was one of those, oh, my goodness, we let them hang around. They got hot. Momentum shifted. You could feel it in the stadium, that momentum. And, we know how that game ends. But did anybody think that game was going to end that way? Nah.
Actually, speaking of the way that game ended, I've got a clip here that I want to play. And you'll probably hear this multiple times on the Knightline podcast, because I love it. And I'm going to play Mark Daniels' radio call of that real quick. I'm sorry about the audio. They got a little excited, and their guys running the mixing board didn't really react too well. So there's quite a bit of distortion here, but let me play that real quick for you. This is the radio call by Mark Daniels.
So here we go, the Knight 49-yard line. Got to block him to give enough time to throw it deep. 5 seconds to go. Snap back. Holman steps up, throws it towards the end zone. It's going to be...
He got it! He got it! He got it! He got it! Touchdown, Perman! He got it! He got it! Oh my goodness! UCF wins! Oh my goodness! Pandemonium on the field! Brashad Perman caught it! 51 yards! Touchdown! The Knights have stunned East Carolina! East Carolina's in shock! Oh my goodness! And they shoot the cannon! I don't believe it!
That is absolutely awesome. I love it. The fact that they, I don't know, how did the cannon go off? They usually do that for their scores, right? They have a real cannon, too. What's up with that?
Yeah, we were right near that.
Yeah.
So
God.
When they started coming back, that cannon became even more annoying. And from where we were on the opposite side of the field. So you saw the play unfold. Of course, you don't think that is going to happen. And everybody starts jumping up, and that's when we knew. And you heard the reaction of the radio broadcast, and that was the reaction in the stands. We just disbelief, but screaming, oh, my goodness, what did we just see? What we saw was one of the greatest moments in UCF football sports history.
Absolutely. I would rank it definitely right up there with the catch, from JJ, and that was a huge moment, even though it wasn't a game per se last-second winning thing, but,
And what's interesting about that is that the list of great UCF football moments, you might not have filled a top 10. There might not have been 10. And for the longest time, UCF beating Alabama in Alabama, and I was at that game. That was it. That was it. And then you think about all these moments now, and the Fiesta Bowl, and so that Alabama game for me still still a special moment. That was a big turning point for UCF football. But where does it rank on that top 10 list now? And that's good to have other moments now that push it down that list.
And there's a lot of people that will say, on any of these things, oh, well, Alabama, it was a down year for them, blah, 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 whatever. UCF came out overall winning that game.
We won that game in Alabama. Enough said.
Right. That's all good. Okay, so a couple notes here. UCF now is 2-6 overall in Greenville. So that was only the second time we've won there, which is kind of interesting. We have won 14 consecutive games on non-Saturday Not on Saturday. Non-Saturday games, I guess.
That's an odd statistic, but we'll keep that.
It is,
And the bowl game is when? On a Friday night.
It's on a Friday night. The other statistic that goes well with that is UCF has been victorious in 25 straight games beginning at 3 p.m. or later. So we have a couple things there.
That should fuel all those folks who don't like those noon Saturday games.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Where do you sit in the stadium?
That's a sore subject with me.
Is it?
I'm where they're putting that tiki bar.
Really? You're on that side?
I'm on that side.
Oh, wow.
I'm being displaced.
Wow. Well, you need to move over to the other side anyway. I guess both sides have their advantage to the sun at times, but after about 3 p.m., if it gets into that, it's not so bad for me because I'm on probably about the goal line on the UCF on the tower side. So I had such a sunburn after the last noon game, or not the last noon game. But
if you got a sunburn during that rainy SMU game,
not that one.
You're fair-skinned.
What was the other noon game that we played?
There were
year?
So many.
There was the one that was brutally
Tulane.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
The Tulane game.
Absolutely horrible. All right. So, yeah, where do we go from here?
What I would say is interesting is that we know we have a rival in South Florida, but it certainly feels like we've got a pretty good rivalry, easier said than done, but with East Carolina.
Absolutely.
And this will only add to it.
Absolutely.
They get to go to a bowl. Obviously, they had a good season, but that's a painful way for them to close out their regular season at home on senior day. Shock, disbelief. And that just will add to that rivalry.
I would think that they're definitely probably our second, rival versus, besides.
And that's been hard, geographically in some cases and changing conferences. But we've had a good thing going with them. And that's the kind of moment that just adds to it. You know that they want revenge for a play like that next season.
And I believe that they will be in our division also next year.
They are, and you could conclude from that with us playing there, that they will come here. And
we will report on that as soon as that schedule comes out. I think somebody had asked about that this last week to George O'Leary, and I'm not sure if he really knew anything about that.
Well, the big problem there is they're still missing one home out-of-conference game. We've got the road games at Stanford and at South Carolina. We've got a home game with Florida International, and then we've got that question mark game, so they haven't filled out the schedule yet.
I know that we got a home with Maryland worked out, I believe. Was that this year or next year?
No, that got pushed back a couple of years. I don't know the start date, but it's not this year.
Okay. All right. Well, forget that then. Yeah, so we're looking for one. I think we'll find one.
You'd like to find a good opponent, but you'd like to find a game where you've got a pretty good chance of winning, because that's two tough road games. South Carolina and Stanford. That's a tough road slate for us out of conference.
Yeah, starting the year again with a tough road beginning. That's kind of a thing that sounds like we like to do. I also want to play George O'Leary's statements after the ECU game real quick. We'll do that right now.
That was a great last play. I hate to be at the other end of that, but I tell you what, kids are thoroughly enjoying themselves. I'm sure you're going to want to get some of them on the line with you, and they're the ones that got it done. Well, I didn't understand what they were doing there. I thought just take a knee and at least let us drive the ball further. He was losing yards for him, and that helped us with the two throws. Well, I thought we played well the first half. Third quarter, we played well early. Then we started missing some tackles on defense and started basically, giving up some plays we shouldn't give up. And offensively, you can't go 3 and out against these guys. And I thought we did a good job of controlling the ball, but I thought protection broke down a little bit in that fourth quarter. Yeah, we got second in a row for the conference. That's the first time in school history. So that's great for the players. I'm so happy for them.
I think that's awesome to hear George O'Leary actually chuckle and they showed him on ESPN smiling.
That was the moment, people, of course, talking to me about the catch, but then they would say, hey, your coach smiled. I don't think our fans have seen him happy.
I think him smiling was the play of the day on ESPN. If I'm not. Oh wait, no, the catch was probably the play of the day, and then Rennell Hall's catch, the NFL style catch that he made on the sideline was also in the top Sports Center top 10 plays of the day. So that was kind of cool.
It's nice to have that Thursday night game slot where you're the only college football game on. And
I don't mind that. There are people that don't like that, but we've talked about that on the show before, where there were other teams that took advantage of that. Boise State, especially, in the Mountain West in general, took advantage of that Thursday night spot when they had it, and people know about them that wouldn't have otherwise. I can talk to my friends at home in other states and stuff, and they're, hey, your Knights are on TV. Yeah, really? I knew that, but yeah, well, they're on TV here.
And that's an exclusive window for us. And when you're on Saturdays, there are a lot of games on Saturday. That's one thing I think our fans, a section of our fan base, goes crazy about, are the game dates and times. It's out of our control.
It is.
All you can do is show up. It's 6 games, rearrange things, but we aren't going to be able to control that Thursday or Friday or Saturday at noon. So you got to show up when it is. There isn't anything we as fans can do about that.
Right. All right, so also, I guess this kind of leads us to the point of talking a little bit about where some say that we should probably try to go to a different conference and get into one of these power conferences. There are a couple of conferences that, one in particular, that needs to do something because they had 2 teams that were in the top 10 this year. Actually, I'd say the top 6. They were both of them in the top 6. So, and neither one of them are in the college, I'm doing air quotes, college playoffs, which would be the Big 12 with Baylor and TCU. George O'Leary actually had some comments on that, and it was kind of about if people are watching us and if they should be watching us, I guess. Here's some comments from him as well.
If you look at what we've accomplished in 3 years, 5 years, we've had, 3 10-win seasons, a 12-win season. They should be talking about you, really, throughout, not just in Florida, just in the country. UCF's very well thought of in the football program as far as the game, the kind of game you're going to get from them, and basically what's taking place. I think it's hard to win conference championships. I've said that right from the get-go, and that's the only goal this team has. So I'm very proud of the team and what they've accomplished. But, I think basically, I think UCF's going to be on the lips of a lot of people, to be honest with you.
All right, well, sorry about the audio quality on that. It wasn't the best. But George said right there that people should be looking at us, and hopefully we can get into one of those conferences and be able to get out of the American, I think, would be the biggest thing that we would have trouble with.
But you know what? The other thing that he said there is that we're back-to-back conference champions, and there are only 2 other schools beside UCF that can say that the last 2 seasons. It's Baylor and it's Florida State. And that's pretty good company. And that's another one of those things that's what we can control, or not we, but the team and the players can control, is pursuing that conference championship. And that is a big accomplishment. That's what will get us noticed. That fan support, donor support, those are the things that will get us noticed by a conference.
Now, is this the first time that we've been back-to-back conference champions in our respective conference?
I think that is true. I don't think we were back-to-back in Conference USA.
Yeah, because it was kind of like a 1 year. I'm not sure. We could be wrong on that. Whatever. Call us out on that. If you know differently, then call us up at 407-205-7427, and you can talk to us about that. Anyway, yeah, so that was still, a big deal. Speaking of Florida State, George O'Leary had some comments on the Mike Bianchi show this week about playing with the other Florida teams. hear about that real quick.
I think we can compete with pretty much everybody in state. You know, we're knocking on the same doors in recruiting. Obviously, we don't have the budget some of them have, but I think the coaches have worked hard on securing talent, and really it's not the 4 stars or 5 stars. You want to get someone, but it's what you do with them when you get to college. That's what makes the difference. And we have a reputation throughout the country of really coaching them up and getting those kids to play basically above their talent level a little bit if they're a 2-star, and then they develop in college. They may not have developed in high school.
I actually like the fact that O'Leary talks about taking players that aren't necessarily 4 and 5 star players, because, you know, a lot of those rankings don't really matter that much, because any of those guys could come in and not be a good player, and any of those players that weren't scouted, you know, particularly well could come in and be a player that, you know, really performs, like Bruce Miller we were talking about earlier, who was a 2-star, you know.
I'm more interested
like
in seeing how they are on senior day. When you look back at those seniors and that class, and you go, okay, it doesn't matter what their star ranking was then. What are they now? You know, that's where you see the progress of the program, is the quality of the senior classes that we're producing.
And that's what, more than anything, is coaching. That's how it's so great and so wonderful that we have the coaches that we do that can actually coach those players up to being, you know, a star player. You know, speaking of 4 and 5 and 2 stars, whatever, they can be a actual star, you know, if they're coached properly. And I think that that's what UCF really has going for them.
I think there's a segment of our fan base that gets frustrated that we don't get 4 and 5 star guys, but realistically, for the league that we're in, are we going to steal a recruit from a Florida State? No, we're not going to steal those recruits. It's just not going to happen at this level with the recruiting budget that we have, the dollars that we have within the program. So we have to see the team coach up a 2-star Bruce Miller into a quality player, or a J.J. Wharton. You know all of these stars. We know them now. They weren't stars 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Or a guy named Blake Bortles that everybody wanted as a tight end. Really? He was the number 3 pick in the entire NFL draft. The first quarterback picked, and everybody wanted him as a tight end. But Charlie Taff and George O'Leary saw, and I'm sure a couple of the other guys was in on that too, but saw a quarterback in that kid, and there he is.
And I think that's how you evaluate, are they coaching these guys up? Are they, outperforming their star ranking? And I think by and large they have been.
Yeah. So this week also the postseason conference honors came out. And this is something we should talk about. The co-defensive player of the year, Jacoby Glenn. That's awesome for him. I almost worry if he might decide that he wants to go as well. There's been some speculation about Perryman going to the NFL, and I personally believe he will. There's also Jacoby Glenn's name has been brought up. He was one of the top corners in all of college football this year, to be honest with you. I think he ranks in at least the top 10, if not better, actually, than that. But he had a heck of a year and got that, co-defensive player of the year. Also, we had first-team players. Clayton Geathers, Jacoby, I already said Jacoby, Perryman, Plummer, Stanback, and that was the first team. And then the second team was Brandon Alexander, Gerald Mamiya, Thomas Niles, and Torian Wilson. But back to Jacoby Glenn here. He was the first freshman or sophomore to ever earn Offensive or Defensive Player of the Year status by a conference for UCF. He's UCF first conference Defensive Player of the Year since Camille Ishmael earned it in 2012 in Conference USA. He's the fourth Conference Defensive Player of the Year overall. It was Glenn Ishmael Miller twice. And it's the 10th time a Knight received Conference Player of the Year status, period.
The most important part for me is sophomore, so I think he comes back.
I would hope so, and that, you can go to the NFL as a sophomore. I really don't like to see it because we would almost get in the same situation easily, and it kind of reminds me of the situation where the players, come to men's basketball and play 1 year and they're gone to the NBA, which is...
Fortunately, we don't have that problem.
I don't think, we're gonna talk about that soon, and I don't think that we have that problem.
No, we don't have that problem.
At all. So, actually, why don't we just talk about that now? Good time to bring that up. Nice segue there. That's why you're here, my friend. And, so last night, it was Florida Atlantic at UCF at the CFE Arena, and it didn't quite turn out the way that we had expected it to. The final score was Florida Atlantic 54, UCF 41. We actually only shot 25.5% from the floor throughout the entire game. Wow.
We led at half.
Absolutely we did.
And
we
then
led
we scored
25-26 at the half.
And then we scored 2 points for like the next 15 minutes of basketball.
Yes. It went down to the 6:29 mark, I believe, before we scored the first point. The weird thing was about that statistic, or that, not scoring up until that point. The shots were there. They took the shots. They couldn't make the shots. They took the shots.
They took the shots.
I mean, that was what was the weirdest thing. It's not like they were defended so much. I don't know what happened, to be honest with you. Yes, they could have been a little tired from the road games that they went on this last weekend or week. And that was the first road trip of the season. That could be an excuse.
But you're talking about back-to-back games where they led at the half and then completely fell apart in the second half. So is that fatigue? Is that a young team? They took shots. They didn't always take good shots.
Right.
And they just don't look very physical either. I mean, Florida Atlantic pushing you around. It feels like it's going to be a long season when we're struggling with these out-of-conference games.
I tweeted at one point that I thought there was going to be some blood spilled because everybody was being real rough at the beginning, and I thought, man, this is going to be a great game. And it was. The first half was a pretty good game. The shooting wasn't good by either team, to be honest with you. FAU the whole time was only like 35%, but their 35% beats our 25%, and blah, blah, blah. So, let's hear what Donnie Jones had to say. Coach Donnie Jones. Let's hear what he had to say.
Tough to take a loss like that, and obviously in the second half, and almost like it's kind of blur because it seemed like it took us a long time, obviously, to get a bucket. And anytime you have a hard time scoring it, you're grinding hard on the defensive end, and we just had one of those second halves where we couldn't get one to go down. And, no excuses, obviously playing less than 48 hours of traveling across the country and coming in playing a team. They did a great job, not taking away anything from men who executed. But, I still believe in this team. It's a one game. And there's a lot of growing going on in that locker room right now. And there's a lot of good players, a lot of good kids, and I think the biggest thing for us here is this guy beside me is a part of what we're building here. And adversity is the whole key to developing a great team. And I think tonight was another challenge for us. And we'll get back to work here. The good news is school's out, and we got a chance to really improve over these next few days. But I do want to make sure everybody knows that this team's going to get better.
My problem with that is that the coach, Jones, says no excuses,
but then he makes an excuse.
But then he makes a series of excuses that may be legitimate, but don't preface it with no excuses, but we were coming off the road game on Thursday. It's a young team. We've battled through some injuries. These may be legitimate points. but don't preface it with no excuses, but we've got blown out in the second half in back-to-back games 2 days apart.
Yeah. It seems to be, a pattern that really doesn't need to start two games before conference play starts. And I don't know if Donnie realizes, but we have to play teams like Memphis and UConn and Cincinnati and Temple and SMU. These guys are, UConn is the defending national champion,
Well, go back a few weeks. We were told about this schedule that this was a young team, that we needed to schedule Eckerd and some of these programs to get some minutes, to gain some confidence. And I think when you are a ticket holder, a season ticket holder, a fan, I think you expect to see wins at home. We were blown out by Davidson.
I expected that personally, just because I know
their star player had 32 points, which
Yeah.
was a career high. But,
Right.
you're getting embarrassed on your own home court. And then the Saturday night game against Florida Atlantic, no disrespect to them. They played good enough to win, but that was not a really good Florida Atlantic team. And I think the bigger question as we go into conference play is, where is this program after 4 seasons of Donnie Jones? Are we trending in the right direction? Because I hear him telegraphing all of the reasons why this is going to be a long season. Remember, last year we only won 4 games in conference. Are we going to surpass that? Not by what we saw on Saturday night against Florida Atlantic.
I really like Donnie Jones as a person, and I, of course, like all the players, really like BJ Taylor. But I think, and I think a lot of other people think, and you kind of said it there, I think it's time for Donnie Jones to go. If we were to move into a larger conference, if we were to move in especially to the Big 12, what do you think would happen when we play Kansas and Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Baylor?
Well, I don't think the Big 12 or any other conference is or is not selecting us because of our basketball program.
It's been mentioned that
But if you're looking at, we shared the AAC title in football with Memphis, okay, and Cincinnati. So if we're going to say we're all equal in football, I'd say Cincinnati and Memphis may be slightly ahead of us in men's basketball. I don't think that's a reason we get pulled up to a conference. But, okay, where are we as a program after this many years? I think that's the question. Last night's game was the first game when fans that sit around me said it's time for a change. Now, it doesn't mean that the program is going to have that change, but where are we going as a program? I'll ask you this question. Which UCF player in the time in which you've been following the program has gotten better during his tenure with UCF? Who's gotten better? We saw Calvin Newell struggle last year, Tristan Spurlock struggle. Isaiah Sykes was not the leader that fans had hoped. Who has gotten better as a player under Donnie Jones?
That's a good question. Maybe we should ask Donnie Jones that question at some point. I would love to. And I may have the opportunity to. I honestly can't answer that. Maybe Stephon Blair a little bit better. Casey Wilson maybe a little bit better.
I'd say Casey Wilson has not gotten better.
The same, pretty much. Well, we have BJ Taylor and Brandon Goodwin, Adonis Henriquez.
Well, there's talented players there, but earlier we were talking about football, that the 2-star guy becomes an NFL player.
Somebody said it on the message board earlier. Maybe George O'Leary should coach basketball as well.
Is Donnie getting more out of those players when they suit up in the UCF uniform during their tenure? And I think after this many years, I think we can say that he's not.
How many years has he been here now?
It's 4 seasons, isn't it?
This is 4. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, well, there's definitely got to be some stuff done, and I don't know if losing to FAU would really. I mean, because we've had kind of a little bit of a in-state rivalry with them. I think we've played them. Oh, it's here someplace. I can't remember.
Well, you got 2 non-conference games left, back-to-back at home, Wednesday and then the following Monday. And
Detroit and Southeast Louisiana.
And then conference play starts. So I don't know when he's going to get it going, but now's the time.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it, I think, for episode number 21 here. We greatly appreciate you listening. Next week, we will have another new member of the Knightline Podcast team. Remember, www.ucfknightlinepodcast.com. And I'm Andrew Phegley and
Trylko.
All right, we will see you next week. Thank you for listening.